Good afternoon. It is March 5th. We're back for our afternoon recess. We are going to begin with a proclamation celebrating the 20th anniversary of Capacity Partners, and to present it is Councilmember Glass.
I am going to invite up Mary and all the partners that are here. Peter, if you want to come up. Everybody, there's a large contingency here. Lots of love for Mary and Capacity Partners. Yeah, either way. This is not a shy group, I know, so. Yeah, come on up here. Yeah, Deb, come on. Fantastic. Well, I am really excited about this proclamation because I first met Mary Robinson when we were Leadership Montgomery classmates many, many years ago, and I learned about the work that she was doing in the community. And we spend a lot of time here at the council talking about our nonprofit partners, talking about our social safety net, about our grants, about special appropriations to make sure that individuals in our community have the food that they need, to make sure that they have the housing that they deserve, that their kids have access to quality after-school programs. And what we don't talk a lot about at the council is the people who help those organizations do that mission-driven work. And that's where Capacity Partners comes in. And Mary Robinson founded Capacity Partners 20 years ago to help further the mission of all of our nonprofit organizations here in Montgomery County, so that it is truly a public-private partnership between those organizations, the county, the philanthropists and donors who help them, the people who serve on the boards. And there's a lot of work to do, and Capacity Partners are true partners in that work, helping build up the capacity, the effort, the knowledge, so that we can all together do the work to make sure our social safety net is as strong as it can be and as it needs to be to help meet the needs of all 1.1 million residents. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Mary to say a few words.
Okay, Evan. Evan, thank you. Okay. Evan, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure to work by your side for many years when you were an executive director and we had the opportunity to help that organization, and then also here through the council. As I look around the room, there are so many people that I have worked with, and including many of you, county council members. I've served on boards with many of you. I've worked on initiatives, the Greater Bethesda Chamber of Commerce with many of you. And this goes to the reason that I founded Capacity Partners in the first place, which was that I deeply believe that for a community to thrive, it must depend upon a partnership between government, the private sector, and of course, nonprofits. And we are so thrilled to be able to help the very special place that nonprofits play and their role in advancing their missions, which are often heartfelt and missions that really only nonprofits can undertake. I'd like to give thanks to the amazing group of consultants who have worked side by side for 20 years. We have maybe a third here, people who've been executive directors of nonprofits, who've been leaders of corporations, who've been friends over the years. And it's this whole entire team that really has made Capacity Partners be able to serve. To every client that we served, we give our thanks for the opportunity to join with you as your guide as you go through a journey that will lead and has led to increased efficiency, effectiveness, and resilience. And I'd like to point out a couple of our clients who are in the audience: Shannon Babe Thomas from Community Bridges, Kathy Stevens, Mikhail, Stephanie Hansen, who was part of our team and now with our very first client, Washington Waldorf School, and of course Anna Hargrave with the Greater Washington Community Foundation. So on behalf of all of the consultants and capacity partners, we thank you very much for the proclamation and the opportunity to serve this county.
Thank you, Mary, for 20 years of service, and to all of your team, and to everybody in the community who recognizes that our strength is by working together, by building everybody's capacity, and making sure that we better serve the residents of Montgomery County. So before I read the proclamation, I would like to invite up everybody within the Capacity Partners Network. Anna and Kathy and Matt and Shat, yeah. Do you have anyone want to say? Well, I thought Anna was going to say something too. Wasn't used to the wallflower, Anna Hargrave. But yes, please,
Thank you.
you are so shy.
Thank you.
Said no one ever. Okay.
So for those who don't know me, I'm Anna Hargrave, the Executive Director for Montgomery County at the Greater Washington Community Foundation, which is our region's largest private funder. Over the years, I have witnessed many nonprofits call upon capacity partners when they faced a crucial turning point. Time and time again, I was impressed to see how these organizations took their work to the next level, which resulted in them serving more people and making a deeper impact. Then, I got to experience capacity partners myself. When the pandemic struck, we were honored when the County Council called upon the Community Foundation to help launch a public-private partnership to address the spike in food insecurity across the county. With Capacity Partners' strategic insights and very hardworking team, we were able to connect hundreds of donors who were eager to make a difference. Between their generosity and the brilliant work of the county's Food Security Task Force and our Food Council, we strategically raised and deployed over $2.6 million through the Food for Montgomery Fund, on top of the $3 million that donors gave directly to nonprofits working on the front lines. The impact of this effort cannot be measured. We brought relief to thousands of people who had been in pain across our community. But on top of that, we also forged partnerships that still exist today, partnerships that are continuing to work to make our food system more efficient and more equitable. Frankly, we couldn't have done it without capacity partners, particularly Mary Robinson's leadership. I am thrilled to join the County Council in congratulating capacity partners on their 20 years of outstanding service to our community. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Anna, and thank you to your leadership and the leadership of everybody as well. So I'm going to read the proclamation and then invite my colleagues all to come down to take one big group photo. The County Council of Montgomery County, Maryland proclamation. Whereas Capacity Partners was founded 20 years ago as a woman-led small business built on a belief in the power of nonprofits and their crucial role in advancing the common good. And whereas Mary Robinson is the president and founder of Capacity Partners and is a skilled facilitator, fundraiser, and consultant who is widely respected for her years and experience advising nonprofits of all kinds. And whereas Capacity Partners has worked with nonprofits in Montgomery County and throughout the Greater Washington region to deepen their impact by providing assistance in strategic planning, board governance, fundraising, and organizational management. And whereas Capacity Partners collaborates with nonprofit organizations that focus on advocacy, arts and culture, civic, community services, education, environment, and health, while addressing crucial issues that include poverty, food insecurity, racial equity, and social justice. And whereas Capacity Partners works to strengthen the nonprofit sector, partnering with Nonprofit Montgomery and providing free resources to help organizations survive the challenges of the pandemic. And whereas local nonprofits enhance the quality of life in Montgomery County, and a strong nonprofit sector is vital to addressing the crucial issues such as poverty, food security, racial equity, and social justice. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the County Council of Montgomery County, Maryland hereby honors Capacity Partners for their 20 years of service to Montgomery County. Signed on this day by myself and Council President Andrew Friesen. Congratulations, everybody. Colleagues, if you want to come down, showing the true partnership of this work.
Okay, thank you for that. Congratulations again to Capacity Partners. Thank you to all of our nonprofits for joining us today for that recognition. We are going to move into item 6, public hearings, amendments to the Comprehensive Water Supply and Sewage Systems Plan, water and sewer category change requests. T&E work session is scheduled for March 11, 2024. Those wishing to submit material for the council's consideration should do so by the close of business today. Each registered speaker has 3 minutes. We have 5 speakers signed up. You all can join us at the table if you are ready and available. Patrick Butler, Mary Yakatis, Peter Doherty, Michelle Rosenfeld, and Scott Wallace. Please join us, and as you are joining, I will call on Patrick Butler. You have 3 minutes.
Great. Thank you so much. Just want to say I'm very privileged and honored to be speaking in front of our first Majority Women Council in Women's History Month. So follow you anywhere. Kudos to you. And just want to also say that I'm here representing the Planning Department, but relaying the comments from the Planning Board at their public hearing on the water and sewer category change requests. I suspect the chair or a separate representative will be able to speak more in work sessions to any thoughts and commentary that they contemplated as part of some of these requests. So with that, I'm going to also say that we will get Mr. Levchenko the Planning Board's transmittal letter by tomorrow morning so that you have that information. And I'm going to be a little vague on some of what was contemplated. There was some expression of some concern with related policies and how that may be applied, and some suggestion on some studying to allow some greater flexibility in certain circumstances. But before the ink dries, I'm going to wait and transmit more specific comments tomorrow from the Planning Board. So very quickly, the Planning Board did vote in favor of staff recommendation of the request number 1, WSCCR 22 TRV 14A, to deny the S3 category change and maintain the S6. The board voted 3-0 in favor of staff recommendation for category request number 2, WSCCR 22 TRV 15A, with 2, again, voting 3-0 in favor with 2 abstentions to deny the S3 category, maintain the S6. The board recommendation, they voted 5-0 in favor for recommendation of request number 3, WSCCR 22 TRV 17A, to approve the S3 request. For request number 4, the Planning Board voted 5-0 in recommendation in favor of the staff recommendation to deny the S3 change request. The Planning Board voted 5-0 for recommendation number 5, TRV 04A, to deny the S3 request. The Planning Board recommendation was differed from the CE. The County Executive recommendation voted 5-0 in favor of Planning Staff's recommendation for request number 6, TRV 05A, to approve W1 for parcel 709 and maintain a restricted category for S1. And I'm about out of time. We will again include the rest of the recommendations in that transmittal letter and make sure again that we accurately reflect the recommendations from the Planning Board, 1 for the requests themselves and 2 for the policy issues that they raise.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Our next speaker, Mary Akadis.
Is this on? Mhm. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present today. I have submitted some slides for your review. I don't know if the council has them or not in front of you, but if not, I will just go ahead with the narration, and you can look at the slides later. I'm here today advocating for applications of 4 property owners in the Potomac Highlands neighborhood, part of Glen Hills. Most of our community's septic systems were built in the 1950s and 60s before many of you were even born. We're limping along with them, and yet the staff recommendations for today deny services on properties with a demonstrated need for sewer service. One has a system almost 75 years old and has never been upgraded. 3 back up to wetlands in wetlands and Watts Branch Creek. And all of them were qualified under the Potomac Peripheral Policy when they submitted their applications. After those requests were sent in, the requests were tabled until the rules could be changed. And now they're asking for permission to, or the staff recommendation is for denial. We're here today to tell you that these applications should be grandfathered and they should be approved under the prior rules. The issue is larger than just these 4 applications, though. It relates to our whole community. There are failing systems throughout Glen Hills, as all of you may be aware of. And we're asking today what makes sense about a rule that pollutes nearby streams, endangers our wells, threatens our public health, and places a huge nitrogen burden on the Chesapeake Bay and the Potomac. Staff are required to apply policies that exist, but the council has the opportunity and the power to examine them and change them if necessary. The Planning Board members, as you will learn, have expressed their interest and wish that this problem should be addressed on an urgent basis. 3 county studies conclude that much of our area is unsuitable for septic systems. Restrictions mean there's no way to address our problems. When they fail, we can't replace them, but we're not allowed to hook up to the sewer. Renovations to our homes are not possible. Property saleability and value is reduced, and health threats grow every year. If you refer to the slides that I have provided, there's a map in there that shows the area where these 4 applicants' homes are. The entire area of the study done by DEP is marked in yellow. And it shows that virtually all the properties have constraints that make septic system use inappropriate. Our opponents contend that no problems exist. DEP study and data and science all contradict that conclusion. I have provided some questions that I'm asking you to consider in my presentation. How old are they? How close are they to the systems? Why did they need sewer, etc.?
Thank you.
Let me just go to the final point I'd like to make. We want to ask for 3 things. Approval of the request, release and action on the DEP study of North Overley, and an amendment to the text amendment to the 2002 master plan. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, and we'll review the written materials that you've sent.
Okay, thank
Next
you.
speaker, Peter Doherty.
Thank you for hearing me. I'm also testifying in support of the 4 applications that Mary mentioned, which is 13201, 205, and 209 Carriage Court, and 2 Foxden Court. I really want to make this crystal clear. We are asking for these changes because of our aging septic systems that are going to fail and cause environmental damage to the Watts Branch Creek. The 3 properties on Carriage Court abut the creek, and their septic systems date back to the 1950s. Last week, the Planning Board, as you heard from Mr. Butler, held a hearing on these requests. While they did concur reluctantly in some cases with staff recommendations against these requests, they also agreed to send you a letter, which I think you're going to get in the next day or 2, expressing concerns about the environmental exposure and public health risks. In the case of the Carriage Court request, the commission vote was 3-2. That close vote sent you a message. There are serious environmental and health issues. Previous county council, as Mary's referred to and others, passed changes to the water and sewer plan specifically aimed at blocking a lot of these requests. They weren't based on science or engineering. It was all politics under heavy pressure from other groups. They even went so far as to stop our study, as Mary's referred to, even though enough of it was released that the DEP's conclusion was that these areas are constrained and new replacement septics for most of them are not possible. One of the things that required is that under the new rules that you had to have a septic failure in order to get a study started again. So instead of a rational process, we have to wait for something to fail, and then you're scrambling just to try and live in your house. So I would put it this way. Suppose county regulations forced any of you to replace your leaking hot water heater until it fails completely and floods your house. Only then would you be able to begin a long process to replace it. And that may sound silly, except that, hot water is what you need to bathe, but sewer is what you need to do basic necessities of life. Why are we concerned about this rational process? Because we, the homeowners, and I want to make sure everybody understands this, we have to pay for this and manage the installation. This doesn't cost county taxpayers a dime. Depending on the number of owners who can afford to join together, the cost can run as high as $100,000 per property owner for the main line and $15,000 and up just to connect from the house to the line. None of us have the experience or expertise to do it, yet if our septic system fails and we cannot replace it, we have to try. Mary's been working on hers for a number of years. They're still not there yet. It is far cheaper to replace a failed septic system, except that in many cases we can't. The political pressure brought to bear on the County Council in 2018 was done in a misguided attempt to limit growth by sewer policy. The proper way to achieve limits is zoning, not by sewer. In our neighborhood, we have covenants to prohibit subdivision of our properties. The covenants were filed in 1952, 6 years before the county began zoning and comprehensive planning. Those covenants have protected our neighborhood from development, so development's not an issue here. This is simply about trying to fix a problem that you have no other way to do it.
Appreciate it. I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up.
Sure. My close is what Mary said. Even though the recommendations from staff are what they are, you have the ability as the council to change that and say, hey, it's time to start thinking about this from a science and engineering perspective and not just a political decision. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next speaker, Michelle Rosenfeld.
Yes, thank you very much.
You just need to hit your button. There you go.
Thank you. I'm here on WSCCR 17 OLN 02A. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Iglesia de Cristo de El Maryland, Inc., a church applicant. I'm very happy to say that this is a PIF policy application, and recommendation of approval for the sewer category change has been supported by both the county executive and the planning board. My topic here today is not about the sewer category change application itself, but about the question of what amount of impervious coverage is appropriate on this property. The property is actually split into two watersheds. Part of it is in the Hollings River watershed, which has a 10% impervious cap. Our proposal satisfies that limit. The other is in the Northwest Branch, which has no impervious limitation, and we have proposed on that portion of the property a 40% impervious coverage. We also will be preserving 60% of the site, the total site, in open space, and we will be foresting what is currently unforested property in the amount of 1.2 acres. The county executive has recommended that the Northwest Branch portion of the site be capped at 25% impervious coverage. The applicant cannot build the house of worship that it needs to build in order to accommodate its current membership. The church began in 2000 with a small group of Bible studies and 8 adults, and in 2004 formally incorporated as a church, and it now has 700 members. It's looking for a 700-seat church. If they are required to cap their impervious coverage as recommended, the project becomes infeasible. The two projects that the county executive has recommended as comparisons, both are located in watersheds that have a master plan council-imposed recommendation of impervious coverage. That's not the case for this particular property. So those really are not viable, legitimate comparisons. The third example given is for a property in Clarksburg in an entirely different watershed, also not subject to the same types of impervious limitations. The recommendations really are based on comparisons that aren't legally comparable. It's an arbitrary number picked out of the hat. So our request would be that since there is no impervious coverage requirement or limitation on the Northwest Branch side of this property, that you approve the water sewer category change as submitted with a 10% impervious cap in the Hollings River and a 47% cap within the Northwest Branch. That results in a site-wide impervious coverage of approximately 33%. Alternatively, we would ask that you reduce the impervious coverage in the Northwest Branch to 42% with an impervious site-wide coverage of approximately 30%. This is not our preference, but we would like to give the council an alternative to address the concerns raised by the county executive and yet leave the applicant with a feasible project that will allow them to relocate their current church location.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
your testimony. Next speaker, the final speaker on this is Scott Wallace.
Good afternoon. I'm Scott Wallace with the law firm of Miles and Stockbridge, speaking on behalf of the applicant for the water and sewer category change for the Johnson property located at 13741 Trevilla Road, request number 6 in your packet. The requested water and sewer category change will allow the construction of for-sale townhouses for seniors. The applicant is also working with DHCA staff to enhance the payment to the county's Housing Initiative Fund required for senior housing. In addition to providing this needed housing resource and HIF payment, the project also provides for brownfield remediation under the direction of the Maryland Department of Environment for environmental impacts caused by commercial activities on the property. The requested category change meets the criteria for sewer service under the Potomac Peripheral Service Policy because the subject property is partially in the existing sewer envelope and abuts other properties in the sewer envelope. Second, the private sewer lines will tie into an existing main on Trevilla Road along the subject property's frontage. And third, the private sewer can be constructed without impacting streams, stream valley buffers, and other environmentally sensitive areas. Planning board staff and the Planning Board have recommended approval of this category change, and the category change is supported by the North Potomac Citizens Association, and you should have a letter from them and submitted into the record for this matter. For these reasons, we ask the council to approve the category change. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Let me turn it to the T&E chair for a brief comment.
Thank you all for your testimony, specifically to Ms. Yukaitis. If you want to share with us some of the documents that you mentioned, I'll make sure that they're included in the T&E packet when we have that work session. So thank you.
Thank you. And now that public hearing is now closed. Thank you for joining us and testifying. We're going to move on to item 7. This is a public hearing on Bill 324, Late Night Establishments, Hours of Operation. This bill would define hookah lounge, limit the hours of operation for a hookah lounge, tobacco shop, and vape shop, establish penalties for violation of this chapter, and generally amend the law governing certain establishments within the county. A joint Public Safety and Economic Development Committee work session will be held on March 14th. Those wishing to submit material for the council's consideration should do so by the close of business on March 7th, 2024. We have a number of speakers registered for this public hearing. I'm going to call up Dr. Earl Stoddard, Charlene Reeves, Stephanie Helsing, and Richard Taylor. Dr. Stoddard, when you're ready, you have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, Council President Friedson, Council Vice President Stewart, members of the County Council. For the record, Earl Stoddard, Assistant Chief Administrative Officer, testifying on behalf of County Executive Mark Elridge in support of Bill 3-24, Late Night Establishment Hours of Operation. The County Executive supports a vibrant nighttime economy in Montgomery County generally and in Silver Spring specifically. However, in Montgomery County, there must be a balance between the public safety needs of the community and the economic interests of businesses. Right now, there is an imbalance in parts of our county. As the data from the Montgomery County Police Department will show during the joint committee session, the police calls for service during the hours of 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. are disproportionately distributed across areas of the county where certain businesses are operating during these hours. To compensate, the police department has had to move more personnel resources off of earlier shifts to cover those hours, particularly in downtown Silver Spring. During the periods of police staffing shortages that we face today, this denies the broader community of much-needed police resources to the benefit of a limited select group of businesses and their patrons. By limiting the hours of operations to a time consistent with other nighttime businesses, this allows for a more equitable distribution of public safety resources and appropriately dedicates those resources to a common earlier closing time for all businesses. In addition to the public safety challenges, we also know that hookah and other smoking establishments pose an ongoing risk to public health, particularly for the workers in those establishments. By limiting the hours of operations, we can reduce the burden of exposure to those harmful carcinogens that are contained therein. For these reasons, the County Executive supports passage of Bill 3-24 and encourages the Council to do so in an expedited fashion to allow this law to take effect in advance of this summer. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stoddard. Our next speaker is Charlene Reeves. Is Charlene Reeves here? Please. Okay, Charlene Reeves has seconded exactly what Dr. Stoddard said. We thank you for the brevity and directness of your testimony. If anybody else wants to do that, you're always free to do so. We will include it in the record. Next speaker is Stephanie Helsing.
Thank you. Council President Friedson and members of the council, I'm going to speak. Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Stephanie Helsing, and I am the President and CEO of the Greater Silver Spring Chamber of Commerce, and I am here today to also speak in support of Bill 324. In short, the main reason I'm supporting this bill with the Chamber is that it's about public safety for all, and our current approach is simply not working. We don't want to fearmonger, but we also cannot deny that the increased violence that is invading our community has people scared. I know there are folks working tirelessly to address this, including business owners themselves and MCPD, but the reality is we are still hearing from our businesses and property owners about the negative impacts of the late night activity. Enough is enough for us. The situation is not unique to us, but here is where we live and we work. We urge the Council to support this legislation, which will align and restrict the hours of operation for hookah lounges, smoke shops, and vape shops to mirror the same hours for establishments where alcohol is consumed. As you know, the Chamber has always been about making Silver Spring a thriving business community, a place where people want to live and work and come to enjoy what so many of us love about Silver Spring. The hope was that the late night safety bill that was passed last year would allow the county and MCPD to work with these businesses to create that late night economic environment for all. The reality since then, however, has not been at all like that for Silver Spring. It has become undeniable that the unregulated times during which these establishments are open continue to wreak havoc on our community and the reputation of Silver Spring. Recent data from the number of police calls performed simply between 2 and 7 a.m. from MCPD substantiates this. Bill 324 is a starting point, allowing these businesses to stand up and fly right with everyone else or face penalties of further regulation. At this time, there has been no data that indicates to the Chamber the need to close the hookah lounges and smoke shops at an earlier time. If, however, the situation does not appear to be helped by the passing of this bill, and the data continues to indicate that there are rises and increases in violence and crime, the Chamber will advocate, very loudly I might add, for the establishments to be in question to be further restricted. The Chamber would at this time like to advocate for a few additional items. First, we would like to request stiffer penalties than the Class A allows. We don't see these low dollar fines being much of a deterrent. Perhaps a tracking system that combines these fines, and if you get a number of citations in a certain period of time, you might lose your liquor license for a period. The Chamber would also like to advocate for the reallocation of MCPD patrols to coincide with the closing, whether it's 2 or 3, of businesses as a general and overall deterrent to criminal activity. And lastly, we request that the implementation of this bill be expedited, as the county executive has always also requested. The Chamber will continue to work with MCPD and the county to support initiatives and legislation that make the community safer. We believe that assuring a safe and welcoming environment for everyone is the key to a thriving business community, a thriving Silver Spring, and a thriving Montgomery County. In closing, we would like to actually thank Vice President Stewart, Councilmember Albornoz, and Councilmember Evan Glass for pushing this initiative forward. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Richard Taylor here now. And okay, next panel, Daniel Maher, Joan Susi, and Kathy Stevens. Daniel, you have 3 minutes when you're ready. Three minutes. Yep, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Dan Mayer, and I support Bill 3-24, whose purpose is accurately stated on page 2 of the staff report. And I quote, Bill 3-24 is intended to address issues of public safety concerns relating to secondary effects like crime, which has increased significantly because of late night hookah establishments. There has been an increase in the number of arrests, police presences in central business districts, and excess overtime expenditures for the police department. That's a big budgetary item. I have submitted to you a photo collage that I made of the bullet holes on the 900 block of Bonifant Street in downtown Silver Spring that exemplifies this problem. In addition, be aware that state law forbids smoking in business establishments with only one exemption, as an incidental activity in a tobacco shop. That's in my second attachment. By limiting the hours hookah bars may operate as proposed, this bill then also helps ensure that such establishments comply with Maryland no smoking in public places laws. Thank you for addressing this important public safety issue.
Thank you for your testimony, Joan Susi.
Hi. Hi, my name is Joan Susi. I live on the 700 block of Bonifant Street. I'm going to try to give you guys some time back, but I am a business owner. I understand how hard it is to make a living. I support the bill very, very highly because of incidences I have seen on my own street walking home late at night. I could go into those. You don't really need that kind of testimony here, but I have seen guns 3 times on my street while walking home from evenings out. but legalized marijuana is coming, and I don't want downtown Silver Spring to become the place where you go to party if you want to party after 2 o'clock in the morning. I think that that's something that we can share as a goal because it's attracting people from around the county, and that's great, but it's also attracting for people outside of the county. So I would ask that the county consider long-term about what the rules are going to be related to public smoking of marijuana. I don't think anyone who's at high has ever gotten into a fist fight out front. That's just not my understanding of that kind of consumption. But I still think that there's a rule that should be built around it somehow.
Thank you. Kathy Stevens?
Good afternoon, council members. For the record, I'm Kathy Stevens, a resident of Silver Spring in the East Silver Spring neighborhood, 800 block of Gist Avenue, about 2 blocks from downtown Silver Spring. I'm here to support Bill 324. This bill, in my opinion, is a common sense, data-based bill which will address the problems our community has been having with the significant increase in a variety of types of crime during the time period, particularly 2 a.m. to 7 a.m. Over the years, I've been an involved community resident through volunteer service on the Silver Spring Citizens Advisory Board, Impact Silver Spring, the Coiner Conservancy for Urban Farming, and for many years, all of those groups and many others have continued to work to build an inclusive community, a diverse community. I stand by that work and our efforts to have an inclusive and diverse downtown Silver Spring. However, the frequency of the crime that we're seeing in these late night, early morning hours is not something anyone wants to have included in our community. The increase in the crime that we have seen during the early morning, late night hours is a deterrent to maintaining and building a diverse and thriving business and residential community. Business owners do not want the crime, renters do not want the crime, homeowners do not want the crime, visitors do not want the crime, morning people don't want the crime, night people don't want the crime. In order to reduce the spike in crime, this bill will bring closing times for all establishments into alignment for public safety and better align Silver Spring with neighboring jurisdictions who have already limited hours for hookah lounges for public safety reasons. I've been in the neighborhood for 26 years. I know the community has changed. We're facing a lot of national changes around crime and related things. But as I've said, no one of any age, no resident, no business owner, and no visitor wants to see this crime continue on a trajectory where our precious county resources are being deployed for a disproportionate number of crimes in a small jurisdiction during a discrete time period. So I strongly support Bill 324.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I think that is all of our in-person testimony on this bill. We're going to move on to virtual. I don't believe Matt Engel is joining, so Alan Ebert is our first virtual.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you, council members, for this opportunity to present our position. I am representing today 3 hookah lounges on Bonifant, Ibella 949, Eva 953, and XO 955. While we do not challenge the fact that crime has risen disproportionately recently in urban areas, I am familiar with the DC, having done similar testimony and work with nightclubs and hookah lounges in DC. Crime is increasing rapidly. It is not necessarily hard to actually pinpoint where that crime is coming from. The hookah lounges that I am speaking about today and that I represent have no incidents of crime within their lounge. There are crimes, as we know and as testimony has stated today, in the neighborhoods and in the areas, and there's been unfortunately a increase in police surveillance time, hours spent by police, as high as $70,000 in 1 month. I saw some data, but the lounges themselves have security. They have been working with the police. They have been trying to comply with all of the regulations to date. So far, They are hookah lounges. They do not have alcohol in them. And again, to repeat, there have not been incidents of any violence or fights within the lounges themselves. I guess the point that would probably be made best is that the hookah lounges are suffering and coming out of first the pandemic, obviously, that shut down a number of them. The two of them that I'm representing today are XO and Eva, have been there since 2013. The third one, Evila, has been there only a few months and has spent nearly $500,000 to decorate and renovate the premises that he is in. They're not asking, they're not totally opposing it, but given that this is their revenue, that after the pandemic, Bonifant, the Purple Line construction came in. Bonifant, as we know, has been under construction for quite some time, has limited customer access by foot traffic and all that to keep the community thriving. They would ask for some leniencies, not to expedite this as much as some people are testifying to, and perhaps to even move forward with it within a year and give them a year, because the families depend on this. They are married, they have children, their revenue depends on their livelihood there. The only hours that they are open is after hours.
Thank you. I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up.
Staff. And so I'll cut it off at that, and I appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Jan Brown.
Good afternoon. My name is Jan Brown. I live in the 900 block of Bonifant Street in downtown Silver Spring. I've lived there almost 7 years, since they opened 7 years ago. I come today because of my concern for our safety and the quality of our life that's been impaired since you allowed all these hookah bars next door. These people don't live here. They don't care about or respect the residents. They just come for several hours, tear down the quality of life, and make our life unsafe and miserable. The people who live here, the people who vote. Patrons of these hookah bars even intimidate and accost people as they go to work early in the morning. They're drunk and high. What do they care? You allow food trucks, sometimes 2 food trucks in one short block. They're in front of the hookah bars until 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning, with customers lined up buying food, throwing trash and garbage and liquor bottles in the street. I know you know about the major increase in crime. We've been talking about that in downtown Silver Spring. But did you know that on 2 separate occasions, a person was killed practically on our doorstep? Many people have moved from the Bonifant because people fear for their safety. Living on Bonifant Street and in downtown Silver Spring, those who purchased property in a gorgeous community are concerned as they watch their property values decline. It looks like drug activity when you see cars line up and someone steps off the sidewalk, approach a car and drive away, making room for the next car. In addition to that, the large quantity of used condoms in the alley behind the hookah bars suggests illicit activity. Our crime has increased so much that people will soon stop coming to downtown Silver Spring to spend their money and increase the economy. I believe that by the time the Purple Line is operating, this area will be a dead zone, a forgotten dream, and a very bad decision. It's probably already a bad decision. When that Purple Line arrives, leaves Bethesda and arrives here, no one will get off. They're going to keep on until they get to the next stops. Just look at all of construction, noise, disruption, and inconvenience that we have tolerated for years for no good reason. Finally, I ask you, why you allow the county to the continuing need for our police to spend unreasonable amounts of taxpayer money catering to accommodating and babysitting hookah bars. Thank you for allowing me to speak. And oh, by the way, I support this bill.
Thank you for that clarification at the end. Our next speaker is David Heller.
Thank you for the opportunity to present this testimony. I'm here as the Vice President of the Sligo Park Hills Community Association. Sligo Park Hills is a residential community about 1 mile from downtown Silver Spring. The downtown area is a destination for our residents for shopping, dining, public events, entertainment, many activities. Our association's board is in favor of Bill 324, which would regulate all late-night establishments in Silver Spring. We advocate for all late-night closing times to adhere to the same standard, no matter the nature of the establishment's sales, be it alcohol, tobacco, cannabis, whatever. We also advocate for these closing times not to be later than any adjacent or nearby jurisdictions' corresponding regulations. We take note that the extended late-night operating hours have correlated with increased street crime and calls to police at a time when the MCPD is under-resourced. While extended hours may increase the revenue of some specific establishments, we believe that the absence of regulation or allowing establishments to stay open later than neighboring municipalities would ultimately have a net negative effect on the economy of all of downtown Silver Spring. Every business in Silver Spring, including those that only operate during the day and early evening, stand to lose customers and revenue if the downtown district is perceived as unsafe. We feel that Bill 324 is a positive step towards preserving safe experiences in downtown Silver Spring. Thank you again.
Thank you. Our final speaker signed up to testify is Blandine Smith.
Dear County Council, I'm asking you, my elected officials, to consider the welfare of your constituents that reside in downtown Silver Spring. This new proposed legislation reflects that there is indeed concern for safety, health, and well-being of the county, and especially the downtown Silver Spring area. But again, it does not go far enough. It was just a year ago that a similar response was provided to the late-night safety plan, advising that it fell short and proposing that our council instead require that late-night or all-night establishments look to the smart legislation of other jurisdictions that have put the safety of their community first, with hour and zoning restrictions. A year later, this position remains, and the gunshots that rang out over a week ago at 3:05 a.m. while crowds still milled along Bonifant when bars should have been closed were yet another reminder of how vulnerable we are and at the mercy of a government that is not providing its community with the basic right of safety and quality of life. One cannot understand how neighboring jurisdictions can be more proactive than our beloved Montgomery County in prioritizing the safety of their residents. Residents like me who have been law-abiding, productive, tax-paying citizens. I'd like to reference the RESJ impact statement from the Office of Legislative Oversight and acknowledge that there are indeed significant negative effects of residing near not one but multiple all-night establishments that our government has permitted on the same block. It has resulted in a deterioration of quality of life for all residents, young and old. I never anticipated that my local officials, the same ones I voted for, would not take into consideration the implications of flexible zoning that places all-night businesses within a stone's throw of residential properties. Had residents been considered, we would not be routinely awakened between the hours of 2 and 6 a.m. in the morning by loud noise disturbances, commotion, sightings of lewd activities, loitering, and gunfire. These are first-hand accounts of the negative effects that permitting all-night establishments has on this POC. Again, let me remind you that I'm not anti-business. A walkable community in which I could patronize local retail, restaurants, and entertainment is what attracted me to downtown Silver Spring. However, community safety is a basic human right and a critical aspect of the quality of life that is becoming non-existent in downtown Silver Spring. The council must strike the appropriate balance that keeps the community both safe and prosperous. You must do more. Operational hours should be consistent with PG County and DC at a minimum. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. I believe that is all we have who've joined us today, so this public hearing is now closed. I just wanted to note, as I mentioned before, there is a joint committee hearing on March 14th.
Please don't close it. I'm still trying to talk. Please, I signed up to talk, and I didn't.
Could you identify yourself, please?
Yes, my name is Ahmed Kamel. I was registered to speak, and I even reached out to the
Yeah, are you
very important.
Are you registered to speak on Bill 324 or 424?
It's the one with the hookah lounges.
Okay, we're going to reopen the public hearing, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you so much. First, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak today. And I represent actually 7 hookah lounges in the county and 8 tobacco shops. So you'll be hearing an opposing argument today. First, I'd like to I strongly believe that there's been a lot of mistakes, specifically about hookah lounges and the fact that they do not allow any alcohol whatsoever in the establishment based on Montgomery County laws. Hookah lounges forbid even patrons from bringing in alcoholic beverages that were not purchased in their business either because they don't sell. Also, hookah lounges don't allow cannabis smoking, marijuana smoking, or cigarette smoking. I think a lot of these residents seem to be very upset because their city, parts of their city, has grown to be a little bit more crowded with some late night visitors coming in, yes, from outside of the county mainly, but not to go see the hookah lounges, mainly to go to the bars that are out there that are also open pretty late. And those are the ones that are serving the alcohol that's getting everybody loot. Now, I would like to also point out that crime has not increased due to these hookah lounges, and as pointed out by another person before me, not one single crime can be attributed to any of these businesses or have been occurred at any of these businesses, not once. Furthermore, I actually believe this is actually, sadly, an act of racist, targeted racism on minority business owners who actually make up 100% of the hookah lounge and tobacco shop businesses in Montgomery County. And yes, there are hundreds of these businesses, and they are all minority owned. And I believe that this targeting has happened before, actually, in Montgomery County, when cigar lounges were allowed to continue during the pandemic to serve smoking, and hookah lounges were just barred. So I really hope the county does not make the same mistake and follow this pattern of racist targeting on minority owners. And I strongly believe that there will be a big outcry should this happen. Hookah lounges are not existing they don't exist so that revenue can be made for owners. That's not their purpose. Their purpose is to celebrate our rich culture. Every hookah lounge in Silver Spring happens to be owned by an Ethiopian community member who strongly celebrates their culture. And as a Middle Eastern and other Middle Eastern owners of tobacco shops and hookah lounges, we celebrate our culture with hookah. It does not get you high. It does not get you drunk. It is a relaxing social event. Not anything to do with what's going on in Silver Spring. Again, it's just a target to get to these businesses and get them out of the city or whatever they're saying. If you notice, it's a very common demographic who's reporting these complaints, and I feel like they're targeting another demographic in doing so. I also would like to stress that
I'm going to have to ask you to wrap
the county does
up.
not do any kind of alcohol permitting of any kind, and if any hookah lounge was to even be caught serving alcohol, according to Montgomery County law, they would be prosecuted and lose their license. There is no license for alcohol
Thank you.
in hookah lounges.
We're going to have to ask you to wrap
Strictly because
up. Thank you very much for your testimony. We had you down, I think, for the other bill for 424, so now that you've spoken there, this public hearing is now closed. We're going to move on to item 8 on our agenda, public hearing on Bill 424, Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund Commission established. This bill would establish a Montgomery County Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund Commission, prescribe the membership and duties of the commission, provide for the staffing of the commission, specify the purposes for which funds received from the State Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund may be used, and generally amend the law regarding the distribution and use of funds dispersed to the county from the State Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund. A Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee work session will be scheduled at a later date. Those wishing to submit material for the Council's consideration should do so by the close of business on March 14th, 2024. Each registered speaker has 3 minutes to speak. I will call up all of our in-person registered speakers: Courtney Hall, Rita Montoya, Colin Fraser, and Christopher Barclay. Please join us at the table. And Courtney Hall, when you're ready, you have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. I'm Courtney Hall, CEO for Interfaith Works. We are a nonprofit that has been serving Montgomery County for 52 years. We provide emergency shelter, supportive housing, food and clothing distribution, emergency financial assistance, and employment programs to over 35,000 Montgomery County residents each year. I appreciate the opportunity to offer our perspective on Bill 4-24 to establish the Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund Commission. We welcome the Commission's focus on supporting community-based initiatives intended to benefit communities that have been most impacted by poverty and disproportionate enforcement of the cannabis prohibition. At Interfaith Works, we have seen firsthand the alarming rise in the number of our neighbors needing services in Montgomery County, particularly those who are members of the Black African American community. For example, from fiscal year 22 to fiscal year 23, our seasonal overflow shelter at Progress Place, downtown Silver Spring, which attracts the most vulnerable people in our community, has seen a 144% increase in the number of Black people who are seeking refuge from the streets during extreme weather. The increase in need is not only limited to people who are experiencing homelessness. Over the same time period, our IW Clothing Center saw a 135% increase in Black people who are needing clothing, baby items, and household essentials. Likewise, our Interfaith Works Connections program served 47% more African Americans who needed rental and utility assistance. We also applaud the Commission's focus on grants as the primary funding mechanism to provide this support. Despite the precipitous rise in people being pushed into poverty in our community, it is becoming increasingly harder to secure funding to support their needs. The Commission's grant funding, designed as being complementary to the support that is already being provided by the county, will infuse much needed funds into an increasingly desperate situation. Finally, I'd like to offer 2 pieces of advice to the Council, if I may. One, mandate greater representation on the Commission from people who live in the communities that are most impacted by poverty and have been most impacted by the disproportionate enforcement of the cannabis prohibition. Currently, as written, only 2 of the 11 Commission members must have some affiliation or representation with this community. That's only 18%, and I think given the focus of this Commission, that's inadequate. So I recommend that at least 50% of Commission members should demonstrate an affiliation or close association with this community. And 2, please allow the Commission and the Office of Grants Management to streamline the decision-making process and move this funding as expeditiously as possible. I've had conversations with some of you. I know that you understand and are concerned about the challenge. We have many needs in the community, and while the bureaucratic process, I think, is well-intentioned, it's not currently serving the public good. So thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Our next speaker is Rita Montoya.
Thank you. My name is Rita Montoya, and I support Bill 4-24 with amendments. I am here today in my personal capacity as an advocate for education and an equitable cannabis industry. In full disclosure, I am also a candidate for the Board of Education member at large and a member of the Maryland Medical and Adult Use Cannabis Advisory Board. As you know, the war on drugs with its anti-marijuana rhetoric resulted in the disproportionate arrest and incarceration of Black and brown people, as well as contributed to the over-policing and under-resourcing of our communities. As a former public defender, I know that arrest and incarceration can disrupt families and parent-child relationships, preclude and dismantle education and employment opportunities, and can even cause trauma and physical harm to the accused or convicted. I saw firsthand how arrest and incarceration hurt families and children. We are no different here in Montgomery County, unfortunately. Now, before I report some statistics, I would like to truly commend the Montgomery County Police Department for voluntarily and consistently submitting their marijuana arrest data to the Federal Bureau of Investigation for use in the FBI's Crime Data Explorer database, so that hard discussions like the ones we're having here today can be data informed. And I would also like to encourage other law enforcement agencies to do so as well. It is only through these hard discussions that we can create change. In Montgomery County, Maryland, our Black and brown communities have felt the brunt of the war on drugs. Similar to state and federal trends, while the quantity of Black individuals arrested for marijuana possession has significantly decreased, Black people are still disproportionately arrested for marijuana possession in Montgomery County. While only approximately 18% of the Montgomery County population, Black people were 60% of marijuana offense arrestees in 2022. Prior years show similar trends, although much lower in quantity and lower in rates, from 48 to 58%. Rates for Latina arrestees are not reflected as the federal government does not collect this information. So the rates for white arrestees for marijuana offenses could include Latina arrestees, but we just don't know. Notably, many of the aspects of criminal justice system involved referenced are also risk factors for educational achievement disruption, and we see that reflected at all levels of schooling for Black and Latino students who have significantly lower rates of achievement than their white and Asian counterparts. So I do support this bill with amendments. Specifically, I'm asking that it reflect the state legislation language. For example, criminal history in 24-80B3 to read arrested for marijuana possession. After incarceration to read after cannabis or marijuana incarceration. Editing drug laws to read cannabis or marijuana prohibition. Editing membership to add preclusion or disruption of education and career opportunities so that members of the board can have that experience and make decisions accordingly. And one last one, to remove nonprofit organizations and replace it with community-based organizations to mirror state legislation language and permit school-based groups to apply for funding. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Our next speaker is Colin Foster.
Fraser, thank you. I appreciate being here, and I support Bill 424 and council members who put this together. I am one of the first Black-owned cannabis delivery applications in the state of Maryland and in the U.S. and in Jamaica, too. I support this specifically on the cannabis reform just because it directly affects me and a lot of other patrons who've been a part of this, and being able to put funds back in the community is desperately needed, not only for education, but to help with the illegal market as well, too. Back in 2008, I was shot 8 times. I was shot in my face where I broke my eye socket. I was shot on the left side of my face. Bullet came out the right side, shot on my jaw, shot twice in my abdomen, and the rest in my arm, where I shot on my radius arm. Came out of incarceration, did 8 years of prison ministry with Clarksburg, Baltimore County, and Jessup. So it's strongly needed that we need the funds to be able to go back and educate those on the wrong side of the tracks to help with business development and even just on safe consumption. Our organization is working with Black Maryland Collective in Baltimore, as well as another organization here in Montgomery County to do safe consumption learning classes within the senior living facilities, where we're giving them education on safe consumption. And by the support of this bill, we're being able to have grants to these businesses. We can help this new emerging industry. And that's it.
Thank you for your testimony, and thank you for sharing your story. Our next speaker, Christopher Barclay.
Good afternoon. It's great to see the County Council. Thank you for this opportunity to testify. I almost want to say ditto, but there are a few things that I do want to speak to with in support of Bill 4-24. As Mr. Hall has said earlier, one of the real issues that I think we have to address is the issue of representation. In the bill, it states that we will have commission members with experience understanding institutional racism, understanding the impact of anti-Black violence in our communities, and also understanding the impact of mass incarceration. I don't think that can be understated. I think we really need to make sure that there is real representation on this commission with folks who have experienced the violence and the reality of the war on crime. I say that as one thing. The other issue that I want to address is the qualifications of the members of this commission, and also trying to figure out the right way to say this and the politically correct way to say this. How to ensure that we have folks on the commission who really understand what it is to deliver community investment that empowers marginalized people to have a voice in the distribution of resources. That is key. That is key. I can't say enough the opportunities that the county affords residents to participate in commissions like this and to participate in what they seem or believe to be decision-making positions. But many times we find that, in fact, community members are on these commissions and on these boards, but they don't have the expertise to make quality decisions. That, I think, is something that has to be addressed with a commission like this. One of the reasons I say that is that when we have commissions like this that are supposed to deal with repair, I think it is going to be critical that the members of those commissions and the work of that commission is trusted and that it is genuine. Without that, I think we're giving lip service, and unfortunately, we don't want to do what we have done in the past, which is to create opportunities to seem diverse and to seem like we're being inclusive when in fact we are not. All right? And lastly, as has been stated before, we have to address the issue of how do we have a very streamlined and inclusive opportunity for these grants to be given to community members. What I've seen as a new executive director in a nonprofit, I'll be quick, is that the grant process is too arduous and many times too strenuous, and ultimately it only means that communities that we want to serve are not being served.
Great. Thank you very much. The Government Operations Fiscal Policy Committee has had a number of sessions specifically related to the grants management and the grants approach. We've been working very closely to try to push for changes to that, obviously not directly related to the legislative decisions in this bill, but obviously related to how effective this and other efforts can be. Thank you for those who've joined us in person. We have Zakia Sankara Jabbar, who is joining us virtually.
Yes. Good evening, Council President. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Good evening, Council President Friedson and rest of the council members. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you today. I am Zakia Sankara Jabbar, and I am the co-founder and co-executive director for Racial Justice Now. We work here in Montgomery County and also around the state of Maryland. We partner with and organize across generations of impacted youth, parents, and communities to build and wield people power at the grassroots, to advance human rights by challenging systemic anti-Black racism, the criminalization of Black families, and discriminatory policies in education and beyond. That's who we are, that's the work that we do, and I want to ditto the previous speakers, particularly my friend Chris Barclay as well. In the spirit of the bill, which was introduced by Jill Carter and in Baltimore, and our organization, Racial Justice Now, partnered with Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle on this bill at the state level. And so the spirit of this bill is in line with what you have heard from other speakers thus far. It was our organization who reached out to Councilmember Kristen Meek, who represents District 5, which is where I reside, to bring this bill to her attention so that we could create this commission following the lead of both Baltimore City and Prince George's County. I can't reiterate enough that this commission must be made up of people who were directly impacted by the so-called war on drugs, which was really a war on black people. This commission has to have people with lived experience, which is expertise, to be able to make the right decisions on where these resources should be going. The resources should absolutely, in terms of the spirit of the bill, at the state level, go to the communities who were most impacted. And we have to make sure that our commission and the commissioners who are appointed understand that and represent that, particularly having the lens of anti-blackness and understanding how that permeates our culture, particularly in the criminal justice space. So we do support the bill. I'm not sure how the part where the people who are most impacted got left out, but I know that we had conversations with Councilmember Meek on several occasions with our partners at ALDS and also ACLU of Maryland to ensure that happened. So we do support the bill, but like everyone else, we want to make sure that the commissioners are representative of the people who were most impacted by the war on black people here in the state of Maryland and in Montgomery County in particular. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for your testimony. That is all of the speakers registered to testify on this bill, so this public hearing is now closed. Next item on our agenda is item number 9. This is action on supplemental appropriation 2443 to the FY24 operating budget, Montgomery County Government, Department of Environmental Protection, implementation of Bill 1822, noise control, leaf removal equipment amendments, the amount of $295,000. The source of funds is general funds, undesignated reserves, a joint transportation, environment, and government operations fiscal policy committee. Recommended approval. Chair Stewart, would you please share the Joint Committee's recommendation?
Great, thank you. The Joint Committee of Transportation, Environment, and Government Operations recommends approval of this appropriation of $295,000. As background, Bill 18-22 was enacted on September 26, 2023. It prohibits the sale of gas-powered leaf blowers in Montgomery County as of July 1st, 2024, and their use in Montgomery County as of July 1st, 2025. This supplemental appropriation is needed to fund an outreach and awareness campaign for retailers, lawn care companies, and residents, as well as to initiate a rebate program by July 1st of 2024 as mandated by the legislation. And again, this was a unanimous approval by the Joint Committee.
Appreciate that. We have a Joint Committee recommendation. All those in favor of the Joint Committee recommendation, please raise your hand. That is unanimous by all those present, 10-0. We are going to move on to our next items, 10, 11, and 12 on the agenda. This is an amendment to the FY23-28 Capital Improvements Program and Supplemental Appropriation, 2454, 2458, and 2457. Unless there are any objections, since these are related, I'm going to propose that we take these up in block. We can have the committee recommendation shared and then vote on them together unless there's any particular discussion. This is action on Amendment 2454 to the FY24 capital budget, Montgomery County Government, Department of Transportation, Bethesda Parking Security Camera Surveillance System, $2,008,000, source of funds, current revenue general fund. There is supplemental appropriation 2458 to the FY24 capital budget, Montgomery County Government, Department of Transportation, Silver Spring Parking Security Camera Surveillance System in the amount of $2,418,000, source of funds, current revenue general fund, and supplemental appropriation 2457 to the FY24 capital budget, Montgomery County Government, Department of Transportation, Wheaton Parking Security Camera Surveillance System in the amount of $339,000, also source of funds, current revenue General Fund. The Joint Transportation, Environment, Government Operations, Fiscal Policy Committee recommended approval of all three of these items. Let me turn it over to the GO Chair to share any additional comments or summary of the decision by the Joint Committee.
Great. As was stated, the Joint Committee unanimously approved this submitted request from the Department of Transportation for public parking security camera surveillance systems in Bethesda, Silver Spring, Wheaton parking lots. This is for new projects. It will add an addition of 290 cameras at the parking garages in the 3 PLDs to address insufficient stairwell coverage, improve coverage in areas that have restricted fields of view, and provide enhanced video retention and security capabilities within the parking garages to support security patrols and law enforcement agencies. The recommended amendment to the CIP is consistent with criteria for a proposal that needs to address an urgent safety concern.
Thank you. We have a Joint Committee recommendation. I see that the other chair of the Joint Committee would like to speak, Chair Glass.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Appreciate the Joint Committee's work session on this, and also just wanted to extend my appreciation to the executive branch for putting this forward. It is something that the residents and the council have been asking for, and for everyone's understanding, not only will we be approving this special appropriation today to begin this work, but as you will see in the coming weeks, it is also, the additional work is also included in the CIP, which the T&E committee has already approved. So this is the first phase of making sure that our residents are safer when they visit and work in our downtown areas and park in our districts, so park in our lots. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to the Joint Committee chairs and the Joint Committee and the executive branch. Obviously, a very important issue related to public safety in our downtown areas. We have a Joint Committee recommendation. All those in favor of all three items as recommended, that is 10-0. All those present have voted in favor, so we're going to move on to agenda item number 13. This is action on an amendment to the FY23 to 28 Capital Improvements Program Supplemental Appropriation 2459 to the FY24 capital budget, Montgomery County Government, Department of Transportation, ride-on bus fleet in the amount of $46,024,000. Current revenue mass transit funds, $42 million of that, $24,000, and then federal aid and state aid a combined $4 million, $3.2 million federal aid, and $800,000 in state aid. The Joint Committee and Environment, the Joint Transportation, Environment, and Government Operations Fiscal Policy Committee has met and has a recommendation. Let me turn it over to the GO Chair to share that recommendation and additional comments.
All right, great. I will describe this one, but I may phone a friend to make sure I get this all correct. We had a robust conversation. This is a $46 million supplemental appropriation that has come over to us to purchase new zero-emission buses in support of the transition to zero-emission bus fleet as part of our county's climate action plan goals. This is, so just so folks know, this is over our CIP from FY25 to 30. It pre-appropriates the planned expenditures for the FY25 capital budget and the FY26 capital budget. As was discussed during the session, Ride-On is requesting these advanced appropriations to fulfill its contract to purchase approximately 100 electric buses by ensuring that the 3-year procurement schedule remains intact. So we have this request, and if we pass this supplemental appropriation, it will lock us into approving these expenditures through FY26. So it is $46 million, but it is over a multi-year period because of issues with supply chain and demand for these vehicles. Our wonderful DOT staff and our fleet manager has been forward-thinking in making sure that we get these vehicles into the county.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Glass.
Thank you. I just want to underscore how important and exciting this investment is. that we are investing $46 million to purchase 100 zero-emission buses and help us achieve our climate goals. And I appreciate the work of the department, recognizing that the reason we have to do this is because of global supply chain issues, and wanting to make sure that we meet our targets, and that means meeting our financial obligation for the vendor, and that is why we are doing this. But this is a great investment, and look forward to hopping on board one of these buses in the years ahead. Thank you.
Ditto to both the Joint Committee chairs. Really looking forward to this and glad this investment, which we were going to make anyway by doing it earlier, accelerating it, we can bring the buses online 6 months sooner, maybe earlier, and obviously the sooner we can move forward with these goals and the sooner we can follow through on them, the better it is for everybody involved. So thank you for that. We have a Joint Committee recommendation. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. That is unanimous, 10-0 by all those present. We are now on to item 14. We have finished our legislative and budgetary items today. We have an interview and are pleased to have Jeffrey Seltzer, the County Executive's nominee for Deputy Director of the Department of Environmental Protection, and he is joined by the Chief Administrative Officer, and I would call the Chief Administrative Officer, Director Monger, and Mr. Seltzer up as soon as you can decide on your seats.
I was trying to make sure Mr. Willanen knew that we were hiring yet another graduate of Penn State University. Yeah. Hopefully, if you agree to his confirmation today. So, and another Western Pennsylvania native. That's right. So, pains my heart. I didn't ask which hockey team he cheered for, Mr. President.
Exactly.
But we seem
and
to have
I don't know if we want to
number.
get Mr. Willanen going on Penn State, but that notwithstanding, let me turn it over to you to present us with your candidate for Deputy Director for Department of Environmental Protection.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. President, members of the County Council. Pleased today to present Jeffrey Seltzer as the County Executive's nominee to be the Deputy Director of the Department of Environmental Protection. And thank you very much for working with us to move this to an appointed position. Important, I think, for everyone to have the opportunity to have someone in this capacity who is an appointed official and responsible to the county executive. Mr. Seltzer comes to us with a distinguished career in the district government. He has been a deputy director in the District of Columbia's Natural Resources Department of Energy and Environment. I was joking with him earlier. He has spent his career dealing with water flowing from Montgomery County into the District of Columbia, and now he wants to figure out what we're doing up here that sends such good stuff, product downstream into the District of Columbia. So he has held numerous positions on policy in the District of Columbia. He's an experienced administrator and manager of people, of resources. We conducted a big search, and we were very fortunate to find Mr. Seltzer very interested in driving up into Montgomery County to join our Department of Environmental Protection, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Munger.
Thanks so much, Chief Administrative Officer Madaleno, and good to see everybody again. I've said it before, and I'll say it one more time. You can see from a mile away what a talented organization we have at the Department of Environmental Protection here in Montgomery County. I see it when I'm in other parts of the state, and we have so much good news to share, and people are learning from our programs. And I, of course, see it every single day working with the talented team that we have at DEP. And I think I'm as excited as anybody, despite the fact that it's a Penn State graduate coming. By the way, no more tours will be permitted where people arrive wearing OSU hats. So to those of you whose team members did that on previous tours, please be on notice. But in all seriousness, I think that we have so much to be proud of here at the Montgomery County Department of Environmental Protection. And the real winners for Mr. Seltzer's experience, leadership are really the people that we serve every single day. And you all here on the panel and council really exemplify that as well. We're very appreciative of your leadership and of your support. And we're also really excited to have Jeff's experience benefit all of the programs that we execute every single day at DEP. So thank you.
Thank you for that. I'll just note, you mentioned the water flowing from Montgomery County into DC. From every environmental expert who I've spoken to, the real problem is Pennsylvania, where you're from, and water flowing from Pennsylvania into Maryland. So if you could help us with that in the state of Maryland and Montgomery County, we'd certainly appreciate it. But with that, let's turn it over to our candidate. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. To begin, could you just tell us a little bit about your background and qualifications as they relate to your appointment as Deputy Director of the Department of Environmental Protection, and explain your understanding of the role of Deputy Director as it relates to this body, the County Council?
Yeah, thank you for the question. First, I'd like to thank the council for having me here today, and also thank the County Executive, Elridge, for the nomination. And if confirmed, it will be an honor to serve the people of Montgomery County and work along the talented staff at DEP. As was slightly mentioned, I'm an engineer. I'm a licensed professional engineer with over 30 years of experience. A little more than half of that experience has been in the public sector. I've done a broad range of work during that time, including managing restoration projects in the field, managing CIP programs, developing and implementing policy and regulation, managing budgets and contracts as it relates to environmental work. For the last 14 years, I've served leadership roles at the Department of Energy and Environment in the District of Columbia, and for the past 6, I've served as Deputy Director, managing a team of 165 professionals and an annual combined operating and capital budget of around $75 million. So I'm hopeful if selected, I'd be able to hit the ground running at DEP. As the role relates to council, I see the role, is really, as a public servant, I always see my role first and foremost as, providing the best possible outcomes for the residents and good government. And that includes being transparent and responsive to council. I've seen from experience sometimes there's, disagreements, or maybe council and the executive don't see a vision or the priorities the same, but I've found that being transparent, being responsive, demonstrating you could be effective at actually getting good work done, maintains trust and good relationships. So in short, I see it as a partnership, with the agency working under the executive, but in close collaboration with the council.
Thank you. Given that the Department of Environmental Protection provides leadership, direction, and coordination to the county in many critical environmental areas such as climate change, stormwater management, water and sewer policy, forest conservation, air quality, solid waste management, and code enforcement, what do you see as the most important issues that DEP must address in the short, medium, and long term?
Sure. I obviously am not with the agency yet, but I've had some preliminary conversations and some understanding. I know there's very progressive goals at DEP, and my job will be to help, bring people along and chart a path towards meeting those goals. I know some of those goals involve change, and that could be concerning to stakeholders and staff. So I think another important part of my job will be to help people understand where we're trying to get to, what are the objectives, what are the positive outcomes we're trying to get to at the end, and be very transparent and open in communication. From preliminary discussions, I think some of the priorities include, materials management, working towards zero waste, doing our part to address climate change and, reducing emissions, making the county more resilient to issues like flooding, and stormwater management, making sure that we're, compliant with our MS4 permit and, doing everything we can to manage stormwater and protect our waterways.
Appreciate that. How do you plan to address racial equity and social justice issues as they relate to the Department of Environmental Protection?
So I've been fortunate in my current role to serve on DEIJ panels. Recently, I was the co-chair of the Chesapeake Bay DEIJ Action Team, and I've served on my own agency's Equity Committee. So I feel like I have a good understanding of equity and feel like it should really be part of the fabric of everything that government does. From my understanding, some of the key components of DEIJ that we would, be priorities are internally making sure that, staff are educated about DEIJ issues, that we're implementing DEIJ policies when it comes to hiring and promotions and advancement. Externally, we're meeting with DEIJ communities. We're evaluating where resources are being spent. And we're looking at policies and programs through a DEIJ lens to make sure that there's, wherever possible, positive outcomes, equity uplifts, and not unintended consequences. So I think, with my experience with DEIJ, it's been a very important part of my job to date, and I hope to continue that.
Thank you. My final prepared question, are there any potential conflicts of interest of which we should be aware, notwithstanding the Pennsylvania thing?
I didn't know that was such a touch point here. No, I'm not aware of any.
Okay, good to know. Let me turn it over to Chair of the Transportation Environment Committee, Councilmember Glass.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon. It is nice to see you and see Director Munger and see CAO Madaleno as well. Extensive resume. Thank you for your long track record of environmental stewardship within government. I think it was yesterday, today is Tuesday, so it was yesterday, in fact, that the T&E committee met with Director Munger and his team to talk about the 6-year CIP and the environmental stewardship that is within the CIP. And we had a really interesting conversation about stormwater management. And I know, looking at your resume, you know the MS4 permit well, and we had a conversation just about how best to mitigate the extensive rainfall and water flow that is only continuing to get worse here in Montgomery County because of the effects of climate change. And right now, we only we allocate about 50% of our stormwater management towards the stream restoration, and single digits, I think it's 3 or 4% towards continuing some of the metaphor before, more upstream measures like rain gardens and bioretention efforts. And the council, the committee, I should say, expressed interest in doing more upstream work with bioretention. And for someone who's been in this work, can you share your thoughts about what the different trade-offs are and as we embark on this 6-year CIP?
Sure. I think it's probably very dependent on the funding sources and if it's like an enterprise fund, what it can be used for. So sometimes that's limiting. But in general, ideally, of course, it's all the above, right? If you're doing restoration work, you want to protect those assets by doing upstream work, work upstream in the watershed to reduce the flow, reduce the impacts of what you've just restored. Green infrastructure typically is used as a water quality piece of infrastructure, and when it comes to resiliency, I think you mentioned like strong storm events and flooding, it can play a part. One thing that I've had experience in is looking at what we call blue-green solutions, where you're, looking for, unique opportunities for conveying water, sometimes through right-of-way and into green infrastructure or into depressed parks that can be used as parks, except during massive events, and they can be used to store stormwater and help with resiliency and reduce flooding. I think we're always looking for the lowest cost solution, the most effective solution. There's no silver bullet, to be frank. I think a lot of the success we have found is through redevelopment, making sure that people are building to a really higher standard and leaving it up to them to find the most cost-effective solution, and helping like the regulated community kind of internalize the cost for managing stormwater.
Great. Well, I appreciate the thoughtful response. I agree with you. It's all of the above approach, and I think there's more that we can do, particularly with the right-of-way, as you mentioned, in some other areas, but look forward to working with you and gleaming off your expertise, Mr. Seltzer, as we approve your nomination and work with you at the DEP. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you. Councilmember Sales.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you so much, Mr. Seltzer, for joining us, and to our Director Munger and our CAO. I commend all the work that you've been able to accomplish in D.C. I would love to hear your ideas, if you can. Describe how you believe we can transition our Dickerson Power Plant waste incinerator and compost facility into a cleaner energy source?
Wow, that sounds like a really big question. I've read some of the briefing documents on that and on all the alternatives for waste management, and I know that there's consultants working very hard on that to try to look at alternatives, what the benefits would be, what the costs would be, what the land use and footprint of it would be, and where it could be located, and that sort of thing. But to be frank, I don't think I'm familiar enough with the details to really give a solid answer right now.
Okay, well, I just read that New York City has said goodbye to 6 dirty power plants, and so it's good to look at some national standards and ideas for how we will transition into more clean energy options.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Well, thank you. You did such an exhaustive job, and your resume speaks for itself. That no other colleagues wish to speak. I'll just note this is a position that we changed at the request of the county executive to be a council-approved position, a non-merit appointee. I will note that we got a great candidate out of it, which was something that the executive branch had indicated as a goal, which we very much appreciated. And I think that the change from the previous merit position to non-merit to an appointee and having the ability to have these public conversations serves the public interest, which I'm very glad that we move forward with that, and I think that it speaks for itself. So thank you for that. Thank you to the executive branch for moving this forward, and thank you for your interest to join us here in this role. We will be following up with you in the near future, but I think you can hear the interest among colleagues in your candidacy. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Appreciate that. Okay, we're going to move on to item 15. This is another interview, slightly more known quantity, with Mr. Ken Hartman Spada, the county executive's nominee for Assistant Chief Administrative Officer in the Office of County Executive. Thank you for being here today. And we have a few questions for you, and then we will open it up to colleagues for their questions. Before I do, I want to offer to the Chief Administrative Officer if you have anything to share to introduce a nominee who probably doesn't need much of an introduction before this body.
Yes, he is, believe it or not, appearing before the county council for the 3rd time for a nomination, so hopefully that he will, a hat trick will be on the way with his 3rd time. I don't know if anyone was here for the first time, but he has been a long-time county employee, served in a variety of critical roles. Hopefully everyone knows he was the Regional Services Director for the Bethesda, Chevy Chase, Western Citizens, sort of the name I think evolved during your time. He has served as a staff person to the County Council. He worked for Councilmember Dennis. He's worked for the City of Rockville. He's a graduate of Magruder High School. He is a graduate of the University of Maryland, keeping it inside the Big Ten as usual. And he has been a resident of Montgomery County since the mid-1970s. Raised his family here and has 2 children who are MCPS graduates and even a daughter who is soon to be or is a University of Maryland graduate, soon to go on to graduate school at the University of Maryland. He bleeds Montgomery County and Maryland. When Mr. Weissman left and woe to UMBC for taking him, we looked around the community, the administration, and thought there was no better candidate for us than Ken Hartman Espada. He knows the community, he knows businesses, he knows people, he knows the challenges we have faced, the successes we have had over the years, and we are very fortunate to have someone like Ken who is willing to take on an even more responsible role within the administration and continue to work with many of you on economic development, on environmental protection, on affordable housing, on transportation, and hopefully we'll be able to deliver more than Mr. Weissman was able to do in his brief tenure with Montgomery County. Love Jake and very sorry that he left, but we are very fortunate to have Ken in this, willing to take on this position, and hopefully you will all take up and confirm his nomination in a short manner.
Appreciate that introduction and extra credit for no notes, which we appreciate, which speaks to the familiarity that you and this county government and county council has with the candidate. With that, let me turn it to question. Tell us specifically what in your background and which of your qualifications make you an ideal candidate for this new role as Assistant Chief Administrative Officer.
Thank you very much, Council President Friesen. I really appreciate this opportunity to be here before you, be before the council for the third time. The first time was Regional Service Center Director, and that appointment, I think I was the first appointed Regional Service Center Director. That was when Executive Leggett had the positions rethought and approved by the council as appointed rather than merit. And then the second time around as Director of Strategic Partnerships under the last council, which is a very important position intended to improve how we work with the legislative branch on a staff-to-staff level, on a county executive office to council member level. And I believe we've been successful, not just with my efforts, but with the efforts of the CAO, the Deputy CAO, the Dr. Stoddard, and Sonia Mora. I think the whole team has risen to the occasion to be available to you for how the council does its business and priorities that you set. As CIO Mendeleno pointed out, it was 30 years ago in 1993 when I walked in the door as a legislative assistant to County Councilwoman Betty Ann Kroenke. That was a different time. I think some of you may have seen my photo at Glen Orland's retirement party. I know one of your staff people sent it over to me, and it was a blast from the past. From there, I moved on to the city of Rockville, where I was in charge of outreach for their capital improvements project. That was a different time. Rockville had a set of challenges that we still experience today with how we do outreach for county and local priorities. And my entire purpose at Rockville was to make sure that how we're reaching out to stakeholders was done intentionally. Our staff was trained. We weren't always going to one model of outreach, the public meeting, and we're looking at many different ways to get information to the community. Fast forward, I came back to the council as your legislative analyst for housing, for the parking lot districts, for the urban districts, for procurement, all things you still deal with today. And I was very fortunate for 5 years to be Chief of Staff for County Councilman Howie Dennis from Bethesda Chevy Chase, which made my transition to be Regional Service Center Director very helpful. As Regional Service Center Director, I work very closely with our business and residential community stakeholders. I was very fortunate to receive the Business Advocate Award from the Bethesda Chevy Chase Chamber, and those who know the Bethesda Chevy Chase Chamber know that they can be tough customers, but the idea was always to create the partnerships with that community, with the business community, to get things done, to solve problems that were coming up. In Bethesda, we dealt a lot with Senator Mendeleno on the what had been the open air cafes. You may not know this, but at one point those were illegal in Montgomery County. And after Federal Realty built out Bethesda Row with all the wonderful outdoor cafes, our inspectors pointed out that there was an issue with state law. So we put a stay on enforcement. We assembled the right folks. We talked to our state legislators, and we got the change in the law we needed to be effective and to serve the interests of not only the community but the business community specifically. Now in my current role, as I mentioned, I believe I've been effective and open and approachable to each and every one of you. I expect those characteristics, the ability to solve problems, the ability to convene stakeholders, the ability to communicate with you will serve me in the new role.
Thank you. If appointed, what do you see as your top priorities?
These are more strategic priorities because I know we can talk about specific priorities later on, but it's this communication with not just our regular stakeholders, but those we don't normally deal with. I saw you had folks earlier for Bill 424 come talk to you who you may not see at Chamber of Commerce meetings, Black Collective, the community you work with the African American Health Initiative and folks there. There are a variety of stakeholders who we just don't see at public meetings that you need to be intentional about going to. I think I look forward to working with the Business Center on that outreach. That's sort of intentional. It's very easy to go to a Chamber of Commerce meeting. It's less. It's more of a challenge to assemble stakeholders in communities that speak other languages or have historical disadvantages. The second part that I want to touch on is the problem solving. We're always going to be solving problems. There's always going to be an issue like the windows in Bethesda. And I know we're working very diligently on a number of issues that need to be resolved. The third element of this job is going to be issue management. And we'll talk in a little bit about some of the priorities. But the role of the ACIO is to assemble that team to move the county forward, working with the county executive office staff and with you all as elected officials to address some of our longstanding needs. And then finally, it's the partnerships. It's all about the partnerships. When I was a legislative analyst first for the council years ago, and I reminded people of this recently, that there used to be a group, a regular convening of the housing director, the HOC director, and the planning director on housing policy. We've moved away from that in the last couple of years. We've reinstated our regular meetings between HOC and DHCA. I'd like to do the same with planning. I have a lot of effective relationships with Robert Cronenberg and others in the staff from my time in Bethesda in solving problems. I'd like to make sure we have that direct staff-to-staff collaboration as we tackle some of the major issues that are facing us.
Thank you. On which policy issues will you focus, and how do you plan on engaging with external partners to develop plans for change and progress in these areas?
Well, there are 5 areas come to mind. The housing creation and retention. We've all talked about affordable housing and affordable housing retention. Director Bruton has assembled a fantastic team. He's rebuilding this department. I've begun working with him. I worked with him previously in my current role and with Jake Weissman on a number of high-profile issues. I look forward to working with him and with you on that. The second issue is the BRT system. You've seen in the county executive CIP, we're moving aggressively to build out this long-envisioned system. So working with Director Conklin and his team to get that done, and with council members to make sure that it's designed and implemented on time and hopefully on budget, right? Unlike some of our other state transit priorities. No fault to us here, but maybe the past administrations didn't kick them off appropriately. The success of the business center, I think many of you have had an opportunity to work with Gene Smith and his team of business liaisons, and also with Judy Costello and the Innovation Network. And there's been a lot of conversations here at the council about how do we build on the success of our innovation ecosystem, and how do we take it to the next level. That's certainly going to be a priority for us as we move forward. How do we enhance? How do we build on our success and turn our excellence into example nationally? The zero waste, I think Councilmember Sales, you mentioned the resource recovery facility and making progress on diverting more and more things from our waste stream, really focusing on a zero waste strategy as a means to make progress towards maybe one day turning away from burning trash. Is something that's higher on the priority list. Director Munger and I have had a lot of conversations, and I know he has reached out to him and would love to meet with all of you on the department's thinking. And then finally, the streamlining permitting. We've talked a lot about not only what do we do in-house for streamlining permitting and communicating permitting with Director Sabakan. I'm looking forward to working with him And I'm also looking forward to working with planning so that we can improve that seamless transfer. When I was at Rockville, we had the benefit of having a unitary system. The inspectors were over there and the planners were here, and under that system there was a very easily identifiable handoff and relationship all through use and occupancy permit. I'd love to explore with Director Sabakan and the planning department on continuing to make improvements on that handoff. And of course, all this gets done with all of the elements I mentioned before, the communication with you as the county council, the working through with our partners, both external and internal to government, and of course that identifying those stakeholders who we don't always work with, and working with the departments to bake in that sort of intentional outreach.
Thank you. If appointed, how would you position this role to work on racial equity and social justice issues?
So, so this is something I don't talk about a lot, but I do have my personal experience in this as a child of a mixed family is something that stays with me as an adult. This was being that other family has always been with us from New York, where we were when we moved out to Long Island. My parents stopped going to church because of comments made by other parishioners. It took us until we moved down to Montgomery County was when we started attending church again. It was even my grandparents on my father's side, my white grandparents, were segregationists. They didn't. I spent more time playing with my abuela from Puerto Rico in my life than my grandparents who were local. So I wouldn't say we were run over by racism, but we certainly were sideswiped along the way. My mother was an EEO officer for the federal government, and there wasn't a single time where she wasn't facing either sexism or racism in her career. So when the pandemic happened and I made the transition as a regional director, I started working on the COVID outreach team, working with our what we call the hard to reach population, and they're hard to reach for us because we don't, as a government, we don't think along the lines of meeting people where they live. The old model was, don't worry, the Gazette will cover it, and people will read it in the Gazette. But we've all talked about how cable is dying, is on the way out, and how the news media is dying and on the way out. So not only for our ethnic and linguistically minority populations, we have a challenge in communications. So that's very high on my list in working with the departments in my portfolio to really think through the outer circles of who to reach out to and how to engage them. And it's something that speaks to my earlier career of outreach and effective communications with the public. I know the departments, you just talked to our nominee for DEP deputy director. This is something that we're thinking about. How do we hard bake into the system the rubrics and the models for vetting our projects and programs and getting them to you and becoming much more effective in that outreach.
Thank you. My last prepared question before turning it over to colleagues: are there any potential conflicts of interest of which we should be aware?
Other than being a member of the sandwich generation, I've got my aging father and my kids in college, no other conflicts.
I thought you were going to mention Long Island because we just mentioned Pennsylvania. And, let me turn it over to Councilmember Jawanda.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's a serious. I'm glad you said the sandwich. That's a serious thing. So being also in that category. Well, I just want to say less of a question, more of a comment. It's been a pleasure working with you. You know, you're not leaving. You're just moving on up the chain, and I've really appreciated your professionalism in all the roles that I've experienced working with you as regional service director, in the role that you're in now. And, you know, while we love Jake, I'm glad that you're going to be in this role. I think you're well positioned. I think you have the right temperament, and you know how to navigate, you know, a role where you're not responsible for everything, and you can't give every answer, but you do your best, and really appreciate that. And I think you bring great life experience to the role. So I'm looking forward to voting for you and working with you in the role. So, thank you.
Next, we have Councilmember Balcom.
Thank you. So yes, we did love Jake, but we love you too. So we'll start there. So I appreciate the priorities that you mentioned, particularly reaching out to people who we don't normally hear from. That's been an issue that is just so apparent with just about everything that we do. So I think that that's something that no matter what topic we're working on, no matter what outreach goals we have, we just have to look at it through that lens, because we just hear from the same people over and over again. So I appreciate that. Your comments about the Business Center, I'm a huge fan of the Business Center. I think that that's something that we just need to continue to strengthen and work on that. The zero waste, from the perspective of, you know, what are we going to do at the incinerator, it's so important that the solution isn't that we're shipping our trash someplace else. So I appreciate your energy and partnership with our Director Munger on that. So I just, when looking at the role, you know, and Jake served this role so beautifully in terms of being a cheerleader, being a fixer, and just being a real strategic thinker, and being able to work very closely with the business community and having trust from the business community. And I think it's a very thin needle to thread in terms of how to represent the administration at the same time that you're looking out for the needs of the business community in relation to initiatives or legislation that may have a negative economic impact for businesses. So can you just talk a little bit about how, and I know that you've had long experience with the business community and in your role, well, probably like every role that you've served, but particularly in Bethesda. But can you just talk about that, how we can help businesses cut through that red tape and bring more business to the community? Thank you.
Thank you so much for that question, Councilmember Balcom. This is something that we are a very progressive county. We're not alone in the nation as being a progressive jurisdiction with a thriving business community. There is a way to handle those communications with the chambers of commerce. There is a way to do that street outreach to, I think most businesses, if you can solve their day-to-day problems, if you can make things efficient and fast and easy, if there is something else that comes along from the county, the first goal should be, how do we streamline this for the end user? Frequently we develop processes that work for us, for the government, and we fail to think about that end user. I'm a big fan, and I know the county executive was also a big fan of how do we provide the incentives for compliance. I believe you just recently worked on the supplemental on leaf blowers, but that's an example of a new policy that, you know, climate. We're in a climate emergency, and we all recognize that. The council has been unanimous, without a doubt, that in expressing that, but also willing to offer those rebates, to make them easy and simple to apply for, and for us, our efforts should be to get to the folks we know are most impacted. If Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez was here, I'm sure she would be nodding that for those affected by that legislation and the phase out of gas-powered blowers, it's getting to that small operator that may have no idea, still at this point, that we've passed this legislation at the place where they are, at the Home Depot or at the Lowe's or wherever they shop for material, and providing that sort of assistance. This is one of the stories early on in my time in Bethesda was getting complaints from restaurants, because it's not just the county. We have other entities who regulate our small businesses, and I think the issue was with the new regulations over grease traps, that a WSSC inspector was going around to restaurants and saying that grease trap is no longer legal. You have 2 months to fix it, or 2 weeks, and when I come back at that time, it better be replaced. And of course, that's something that none of the businesses could afford to do. So we worked with WSSC. I worked with WSSC and with the commissioners and the staff to stop, evaluate the incentive program, evaluate putting in place a program that gives time for that very needed. The downside is you have grease and other waste ending up in your waste stream, and that's not good either. So there are very good reasons for the legislation we pass and for the rules we follow, but it's always keeping an eye on that end user, that small business at the end of the day that's going to either get the visit from the inspector or the piece of paper or the notice. And if we are draconian about it, we send the wrong message. If we are understanding and work with our businesses on compliance, on a schedule, on financial assistance, that's the preferred model.
Councilmember Albernas.
Thanks. Don't get me started on leaf blowers, but I digress. Councilmember Mr. Hartman Espada, we have had the opportunity to work together now for almost 20 years, and I just can't thank you enough for your dedication and leadership in public service. I've seen you play a variety of different roles, rivaling only Fariba Kassiri, I think, in county government in terms of how many roles you've had. But you've done each of them with distinction for all the right reasons, and your patience and thoughtful approach to a myriad of really challenging, and some people will never know quite how challenging circumstances and issues is really extraordinary. So we're lucky to have you in this county, and we're lucky that you're continuing to serve our public. So appreciate you, my friend. My question is actually for Mr. Madaleno. So I think that Mr. Hartman Espada did a fantastic job in helping to provide a bridge between the executive branch and the council. And as you'll recall, that wasn't always the case. There were some challenges, particularly in the first couple of years of this administration, that we were able to iron out. And while it's never going to be perfect, I think it's improved dramatically. I just would like to know what your all's transition plan is to ensure that there continues to be continuity. We're all going to continue to call Ken and Earl and all of the members of the team, but there needs to be somebody specific whose job it is to serve as that liaison.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Albernos, and thank you for the very deserved compliments for Ken for his many contributions with the county government. As I have tried to speak to some of the candidates we've interviewed for his replacement, thanks to all of our efforts, I think there is a much better relationship between the council and the executive. For a variety of reasons, we've had the opportunity to rebuild the second floor team, and the assistant CAOs that we have brought in all have much stronger connections to the community, to the county government, to all of you. Whereas I think when Ken started his current position, it was all on him to do this work. Fortunately, with Ms. Kassiri, Ms. Mora, Dr. Stoddard, and now with Ken in this role, and myself, you have a stronger group of people within the CAO operation to interact with. So I feel we're in a much stronger position to continue that strong relationship that we have built, and that I am working very hard to have a name over to you as soon as possible for a replacement to Ken. My goal, Ms. Kasiri, who I was going to joke, who helped set the agenda, told me we should have 2 candidates ready to go at once, and that was my goal. And unfortunately, that hasn't worked. But we intend to get you a name very quickly.
Great, thank you.
And if anyone is interested, just let me know. If you want to rejoin the executive.
Thank you, Councilmember Kett.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and Mr. Hartman Espada, and Mr. Madaleno. Thank you very much for all that you do. I have to agree with my colleagues. This has been more of a love fest than it has been an interview, and it should be. I think it's fair to say that when Jake Weissman left, when he called and said, "Oh, by the way, I'm leaving," I thought, this is really going to be very, very tough to replace him. Jake did a great job, and he has, I'm not using past tense for him, but he has the personality that people would talk to, that he was someone that they realized they could talk to him. And Ken, I have to tell you, you have that same type of personality. You're always available. You answer your phone, and though I understand this is your 3rd time, it may be the 3rd time is a charm for you. This job should be the job that you really will do as good a job as you've done in the past. This is a job that you will truly do a great job for Montgomery County when Montgomery County needs somebody who, as I say, Jake did a great job, but we need somebody to keep that going and beyond for the business community. One good thing about changing jobs or roles, I guess, in an administration is it reminds us of who you are. I saw you yesterday. I know who you are, but I didn't remember that you worked for Howie Dennis. I didn't remember that you got good training because you worked for a municipality, and that they taught you very, very nice. Vice President Stewart will agree, I'm sure, that municipalities teach pretty good. They really do. They let people know that they are the closest to the people, and that's what it takes. That's exactly what it takes. The business community has not been, but cannot be, taken for granted. We need to make sure that, just like Jake did, that the person who's going to be talking to them is approachable. And when you have that when the business has that terrible moment that realizes that some WSSC or some other organization could put them out of business, they need to figure out who am I going to call, and it's you. And so I, too, look forward to voting for you, and I thank you for what you do. And it's really a big help for all of us that you already know the movers and the shakers, and you already know Rich Madaleno. So, it's a big help for every one of us in the that you're working with. So thank you very much. I look forward to voting for you.
Thank you, Councilmember Sales.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Ken, for your willingness to continue serving Montgomery County. I remember meeting you during the pandemic when you were a liaison to help with mental health challenges facing our young men. And so I've seen you at every turn just rise to the occasion to serve this county. And now you get to work with our CAO, who we are so proud to have. And so, as a member of the Economic Development Committee, I'm continuing to get calls about the challenges with supporting our businesses. And for us to contact our businesses, especially when legislation comes up and we want to send out, alerts about upcoming bills where they can testify or otherwise, it would be helpful to start thinking of a way to streamline those connections. I know with our Black Physicians Healthcare Network, we thought about doing a directory. It's high time that we have a directory for our businesses. All of our chambers produce a directory for the businesses. I know that all businesses, to be in compliance, they need to file taxes every year. So there has to be a better way for us to track and monitor who's doing business in Montgomery County, and for us to be able to easily get in contact with them. And so as you are, thinking of things to tackle in this role and how we will work with our new small business navigator. It would be helpful to think about some ideas on how we can get information from our businesses to better communicate with our businesses in a timely manner. So looking forward to anything you'd want to comment on, but looking forward to confirming you in this role.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Sales. And I do have to say, I had a very interesting conversation the other day about this very same topic, and I believe there may be a solution. We'll hopefully I'll have something to report to you shortly.
Awesome. Already ready for work. Thank you so much, Ken. Take care.
Sounds good. Well, nobody else is listed to speak or to ask questions, although these are mostly like the statements in the form of questions or questions in the form of statements, but speaks to the length of service that you have had in the county and the level of familiarity I think that colleagues have with you. I'll just note, not reflected in your resume, not reflected really in what has been shared here. I have frequently joked that you have the longest other duties as assigned category of just about any other person in county government, and I think so many of the stickiest of wickets, the most challenging, unsolvable problems seem to find their way to you. Airplane noise and others come to mind, but these have not been easy issues. I've been able to work together with you on several of them, as have my staff and as have other stakeholders in and around the District 1 and Montgomery County areas and really throughout the region, and I just want to express my appreciation for that. The other duties as assigned ledger is pretty big on this job, I will say. This is kind of an other duties as assigned type of job, but I know that given your prior ability and willingness to take on additional roles and responsibilities, I know you'll lean into this as well. So with that, that is all of the questions that we have for you. Really appreciate you being before us, appreciate the Chief Administrative Officer and the County Executive for moving you forward, and we will be making a decision very soon on your nomination. And with that, and with thanks, we are adjourned.
The I-270 spur